Yeah, a lot of pressure on Luke Rowe's shoulders. I suspect one of the real experienced heads in this rather unusual Ineos team. Now, I've just had a text come in from an interested viewer, David. Chris Froome has just texted me to say that Luke Rowe wasn't at the Dauphiné. he was actually at the Tour de Wallonie. And I've got two things to say about that. That, on one hand, would explain why we didn't see him at the Dauphiné.
I feel a lot better about that now.
Emphatically. And also, I want to know what race his brother was watching, because I've been slightly stitched up by Matt Rowe, but I thank Chris Froome for that correction.
Oh, great. He really has set us up. Well,
yeah.
Good old Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Good to know Chris is there, running the show from afar.
Hello, Chris.
Hi, Ned. How are you doing?
I'm all right. This is not the manner in which I think we would want to have been communicating during the Tour de France. Has it? Have you come to terms with the decision that you wouldn't be at the race?
Yeah, I have. I mean, obviously, I would have liked to have been there, and that was purely my goal throughout. Since the big crash last year, I obviously had that as the carrot to get myself back in shape and back racing again. But I think what it boils down to is back at the Dauphiné. I mean, 2 weeks out from the Tour de France, I wasn't feeling the way I'd normally feel coming into the Tour de France. And I think at that point it made a lot more sense for me to move the goalposts and readjust and refocus on targeting the Vuelta a España. Obviously, I was willing to go in and help Egan and help the guys try and go for another yellow jersey this year. But I think it made a lot more sense for me to take this extra time now to build up for the Vuelta and really give that a good go.
Okay, so the decision was mutual in the sense that it came from you as much as it came from the team management.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I'm definitely missing race days. I could do with more racing. I think everyone could do with more racing given the COVID situation. I mean, I think you have to remember, not only am I coming back from the crash, but also 2 months of lockdown where I wasn't allowed out on the roads. So I feel as if I could definitely do with more of that top end days of racing. But yeah, I mean, I'll keep working hard now, and hopefully I'll get some more race days in now before the Vuelta.
The Vuelta starts, I've just checked my diary because nothing makes sense in 2020, does it? So you always have to double check things. I think I'm right in saying the Vuelta starts on October the 20th. So what's that? Yeah, it's a month and a half away. And again, we have to say, with a proviso, assuming it goes ahead. Those 6 weeks, Chris, how will you approach them, and what are you going to do to try and get yourself into the shape you're going to need to win the Vuelta?
I think naturally there'll be blocks of training. I've got to get up to altitude a couple more times, and schedule that around whatever races we do have going ahead, which at the moment looks like Tirreno Adriatico for me in just over a week's time. Followed by a couple altitude blocks as well. I think that should get me in good nick for the Vuelta.
Hey Chris, it's David. First of all, respect for the comeback already. I mean, I think it's difficult being in the position you're in with the expectations put on you, and you had the Chris Froome camera on you the whole time at Dauphiné. And what did it feel like to be in that position that you haven't been in for many years, where you were having to, you were getting deep in, but then you were having to let go essentially? How strange was that for you?
Yeah, I mean, in one sense, it was difficult being in that position, but in another sense, I mean, I do have to just keep reminding myself of where I've come from in the last 12 months. I mean, I literally was flat on my back for 6 weeks, only able to wiggle my ankles. So, I mean, then transferring to a wheelchair, transferring to crutches, and only really getting back on the bike 6 months later, properly in January. So, I mean, given where I've come from in 6 months and the fact that I'm even back in the peloton racing now, I think I have to be incredibly grateful and extremely thankful for all the support I've received in getting me here.
Do you think, in a way, it's been a blessing in disguise regards the future for you, having what's happened this year, in the sense that this season, although you've had to pull out the Tour de France, which is completely logical considering, as you said, from the injury and the comeback. But actually now having the Vuelta this later, as it is, you're going in for what's possibly going to be a year-long season. And is that how you're looking at it?
Yeah, very much so. I think certainly the extra time would have helped me in that sense. But to be honest, I mean, I'm just hoping to get a good Grand Tour in the legs this year. I mean, this year has been extremely unpredictable for everyone, and it would just be, from my side, it would be great just to be able to get back to that old level of racing again, and at least get a solid Grand Tour in the legs by the end of this season. That's my biggest goal.
There is the what I've noticed, which I was looking at a couple of weeks ago, the Vuelta. It looks to me like one of the hardest Vueltas I've ever seen, in the sense it's all in the northwest.
We always say that, though, don't we?
No, but it's true.
Yeah.
It's Basque Country, Navarra, Cantabria, Asturias. It doesn't leave the northwest, and that time of the year, the weather could be quite brutal as well. I mean, and so I think probably people are thinking, "Oh, you're going to the Vuelta. It's a nice place for you to start back up in the Grand Tour." But actually, it looks to me like it could be the hardest Vuelta I've seen in a long time. Are you prepared for that?
I am. I'm mentally prepared for that. That's for sure. I mean, it is going to be. I know those roads up there are brutal. There's nothing flat really. It's just up and down. Pretty much most of the days, but I wouldn't expect much less from the Vuelta. I mean, the Vuelta normally seems to trump the other Grand Tours in terms of sort of brutal uphill finishes, and certainly as far as gradient is concerned. So yeah, I'm mentally prepared for that.
And of course, Chris, next year you move on. I mean, like David says, it's almost a continuous year, isn't it? But midstream you switch teams after a decade at Sky / Ineos, and you reboot and go again with different teammates. You've obviously signed, or you've been perhaps a part of the recruitment process, and the team has recruited some riders who you know well, but different riders from the ones that you're used to, and you go again, presumably, Chris, with the ambition of coming to the Tour de France next year and really giving it another good crack.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I think that will still very much remain my biggest goal, is to come back to the Tour de France and aim for a fifth victory, at least.
Chris, can I ply you for a bit of intel since we've got you on the line? Ineos now very visible towards the front, just looking after Egan Bernal. How bad is Egan Bernal's injury?
I mean, he was definitely sore in the Dauphiné, but he has taken a lot of recovery since then, and had a lot of treatment. So I think he should be all right. I mean, I'm certainly hoping he's going to be all right, and his spirits seemed high when I saw him a couple of days ago. So I'd say, I mean, he's definitely on track, and I'd say stands a great chance of defending his title.
And of course, Jumbo-Visma have almost provoked Ineos into rethinking their model a little bit and reacting, because I remember speaking to you just before lockdown when I came to visit your training camp in January in Gran Canaria, and you said, I think your words were, they're a bit serious now, aren't they, Jumbo-Visma? But I don't think either you or the rest of the cycling world knew quite how serious they were going to be, and quite how powerful as an outfit they've looked to this point.
Yeah, no, they've been incredibly impressive. The races before the Tour de France, Tour de l'Ain, Dauphiné, I mean, Roglic was completely, and Visma in general were very much in control of those races. Obviously, the crash threw him off a little bit, and it remains to be seen how injured he is or how much that set him back. But knowing Roglic, I mean, he likes to talk himself down a lot as well. I mean, even after riding away from everyone on a mountaintop finish, you go up to him the next day and say to him, "Hey, good job," and he'll turn around and say, "Oh, that was just luck. There's nothing to it," kind of thing. So he talks himself down a lot. But the truth is, I think he's in great shape, and certainly one of the big favourites for this year.
Chris, I've just got a question. This is just just realised this now. Could you also perhaps be sitting at home watching this and scouting for, for your new team?
Well, there's certainly a lot of interesting aspects in looking at this year's tour, I'll put it that way.
I can just imagine you sitting there with a clipboard, making notes.
You have, however, I keep saying you've signed. Of course, you haven't signed. The Israel Startup Nation have signed Daryl Impey to ride alongside you next year, and that was almost, it struck me, I know that you two go back years. You know, you're both based in Johannesburg for a portion of the year at the very least, and you're old friends. Why was he sort of one of the first names on the team sheet?
I think, well, certainly with Daryl, I mean, I haven't raced with him since we both turned professional back on Barloworld in 2008. So we haven't actually been teammates for over a decade, but obviously I've got a close relationship with Daryl and trust the work that he does. I think he's an extremely solid rider in a lot of regards, and a very key sort of role in the team in terms of being able to. He's a great communicator, and that sort of captaincy role that he would play on a race like the Tour de France. So certainly he's one of the key guys who will be joining us next year.
Chris, can I just check, are you okay to stay with us for the next 3 kilometres? Don't want to overdo your time, but so just checking, I know you have a young family, there's nobody that needs your attention more than us at the moment, because I'm sure the viewers will be interested in just getting 1 or 2 new views from you. Is that okay?
Sure, no worries.
Good stuff. When you line up for your new team next year, and you really do, you know, try and take on, if you like, with respect, the bigger, more established teams, which you've just left at the Tour de France, are you going to have to do it in a different way, both in terms of preparation, tactics, and recruitment? Or would you ideally like to recruit a team full of riders that the types of riders that you have benefited from and been familiar with during all the success you've had with Sky?
I mean, I think it's a very different kind of project that I'd be taking on next year from a very different point of view, and I think to try and replicate what I've been used to for the last 10 years certainly doesn't make sense in that regard. And I think the sport is certainly changing as well. I think the level's changing. I think there are more and more players who are at that top level, which opens the race up a lot more. And I think not necessarily having that train in the mountains every time is going to be necessarily the way to go in the future. But I mean, it's still very early days, and obviously I haven't changed teams yet. So I think a lot of these discussions are still to come, and I'll probably have more for you towards the end of the season once the season's wrapped up, and we can focus a bit more on how things are going to look going forward. And
this, I promise, is my final question, but it's one that I definitely think we should touch on, and it's Nico Portal. The fact that he was a close associate of yours, a good friend of everybody in the team, and indeed in the world of cycling, and he's not part of the race anymore, having passed away at a very young age. I'm sure there'll be many riders in the peloton thinking of him within your team as well, and the influence he had on so many riders' careers and lives, and how greatly missed he'll be.
He will be. I mean, he was such an integral part of all of our lives, on and off the bike, and certainly I think he'll be extremely missed in this year's Tour de France.
Yeah, well said, Chris. Thank you so much for joining us. We've got a little bit of a battle here at the top of this climb, so let's just watch that. We'll let you go though, Chris, on the understanding, I hope, that you'll be joining us in some shape or another on the rest days to give your verdict on the race so far. Are you all right with that?
No problem with that. I'll be happy to do that.
All right. great to speak to you. Thanks for giving us so much of your time, and enjoy watching those. Please stop correcting me when we get things wrong, like you did before.
No, Chris, you can keep correcting us. That's fine.
It's a harmless mistake.
Just stop making stuff up, Ned. Like,
I was sold a dummy. I sold a bluff by the Rowe family.
Luke was right up there in the Dauphiné. He was just played such a great part in the Dauphiné. It was great to see him on great form. It's like, hold on a second, he wasn't even there.
Keep your thoughts to yourself. Thanks, Chris. Let's have a look at this battle. Is Fabien